We have Dr. Anand Ranganathan also joining us. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, the Prime Minister has made several important points. He's referred to, the past promises that have been made, the fact that the Swaminathan Committee was not implemented and that has been implemented now by this government. Really talking about how in the past the Prime Minister believes that various political parties have misled farmers, but at this point of time they're continuing to provoke them and are now exploiting them for political purposes. Your response to that?
Yeah, good evening, Madhav. I fear one of these days BJP leaders are going to confront the Prime Minister and tell him, Modi ji, आपने opposition के manifesto के सारे promises तो पूरे कर दिए, अब जरा हमारे manifesto पे भी ध्यान दें. No, but to be serious, it was a good speech by Modi. I just wish he had made this speech in June when the laws came into effect. If he had, we wouldn't have witnessed probably these protests that may now turn into a platform for anarchists to foment trouble. I say this, Madhav, because although these reforms are the biggest, most difficult reforms ever undertaken, they have become the easiest to defend. Why? Because the entire opposition wanted them. And now when Modi has midwifed them, they are scrambling shifty-eyed in all directions, claiming the baby isn't there. Anyhow, very quickly, Madhav, there are a few things to ponder over. One, reforms are bad electorally in the short term because they disrupt the status quo and their benefits, especially agricultural reforms, take longer to materialize. That's why, politically speaking, this timing, 4 years before the next general election, gives good time for farmers to start seeing the benefits of these laws. For one, the ECA is now gone, so the farmers can look forward to sustained production all year round, top quality godowns to set up and store their produce, as the government can no longer threaten and jail the godown owners on account of whimsical declarations of hoarding. Two, the farmers can sell their produce to anyone, and this is what all intelligent, rational, logical, skin in the game farmers wanted, not these fly-by-night farming operators. 62% of these farmers surveyed recently said that they themselves want to set the price of their produce, having suffered losses of 45 lakh crores in the last 15 years because of faulty government MSP evaluation. Three, through contract farming, the farmers can finally look beyond loss-making wheat, rice and sugarcane and I-cash crops and make the agri-sector hugely profitable for them. Remember, Madhav, 48% of the farmers surveyed recently said they don't want their next generation to take up farming. Modi is banking on seeing the fruits of what he has planted ripen by 2024. Remember, this is India's largest voting bloc. 83% of all Indian households are dependent on agriculture. And if they're happy in 4 years' time, we might be looking at a BJP landslide in 2024. This is what is petrifying the...
Do you believe today that the Prime Minister has effectively stripped away at the hypocrisy of the opposition? But beyond that, you might concede that point. But beyond that, do you believe that the Prime Minister will be able to make an impression on the farmers who are now threatening perhaps to even go on indefinite hunger strike, which would complicate the issue much further?
Yeah, good evening, Rahul. You said it. You've actually put the context of the debate just back. Because, I think all of us are completely, including Mr. Modi, are fed up of exposing the hypocrisy day in, day out. The fact is, Modi has taken the first step to transform Indian agriculture forever. And every rational Indian must support him. Because it would be tragic if, having resisted real blackmail, he succumbs now to emotional blackmail. Let me explain, Rahul. Emotional blackmail is easy to succumb to in this sector because all of us have been fed for decades on Manoj Kumar songs of Mere Desh Ki Dharti, Sona Ugle Ugle Heere Moti, to the extent that we have stopped considering the agricultural sector as any other economic sector. Sona ugalte ugalte na jane kitne lakho kisan shaheed ho gaye aur nikla sirf patthar. Ironically, only the farmers who have a skin in the game see it just as another sector. 62% of them surveyed recently said that they themselves want to set the price of their produce, having suffered 45 lakh crore loss in the last 15 years because of faulty MSP evaluation by the government. 48% of the farmers surveyed said they don't want their next generation to take up farming. So by getting teary-eyed listening to Manoj Kumar songs, we have only ended up pushing the farmers into this vicious cycle of a woefully managed, poorly paid, massively corrupt, badly insured, primitively tooled, environmentally damaging, unscientifically run, debt-ridden sector that employs 44% of our 475 million strong labor force and yet contributes only 13.5% to our GDP. So here is what Modi needs to do now. Number one, set up massive pan-India summits on the lines of those MOU garnering defense and economic summits. Let farmers and their cooperatives strike up thousands of farming contracts with private and international players. 2, bring massive godown and storage facility manufacturers to the table. 3, severely restrict cultivation of water guzzling crops like sugarcane in Maharashtra and rice in Punjab. 4, make sure all farmland owners are insured against elements. Rahul, please give me 20 seconds. 5, introduce GM crops on a massive scale. 6, tax agricultural income above a reasonable threshold. 7, listen to logic and reason and do away with MSP altogether. 8, encourage other avenues for farmers to supplant their income, because what is 2% in the West is 44% here of our nation's labor force involved in agriculture. And finally 9, switch off the radio and stop humming Manoj Kumar songs, क्योंकि जब तक इस देश में सिनेमा है तब तक लोग.
Okay, well, the impassioned opening statement there from Dr. Anand Ranganathan. Look, the point is, viewers, that the Prime Minister is of the opinion that the opposition is part of the problem and not the solution. We've been speaking here times now to some of India's leading economic experts. There might be a few problems with the farm bills here and there which can easily be corrected. But the government believes that the opposition has stirred up the farmer to the extent that they now believe that the bills are militating against their welfare.
Then that is also Modi's problem. तो मुझे ये बताइए डॉक्टर आनंद रंगनाथन, अरविंद केजरीवाल जी किस मर्ज की दवा हैं?
No, good evening, Navika. There are two issues here. The first one, obviously, is the question that you asked me, and I'm going to answer that. And if you allow me maybe a minute, I want to delve on to the anarchy that is spreading in Punjab with the destruction of the network towers. So on one, I'm just astonished by the hypocrisy shown by politicians cutting across party lines. Does Ms. Atishi know, and Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi and the Congress spokesperson, that burning of stubble has been constituted as a crime by none other than Supreme Court? This year, 50,000 farms in Punjab burnt stubble. Every year, an area the size of Delhi, imagine, in terms of square kilometers, the size of Delhi burns right next to Delhi. And we are shifting blame. Now, I do agree, let us say I agree with Ms. Atishi Marlena, even though she says let us not punish somebody who has committed the crime, let us shift that blame to the state government. All right, let's do it. Every time a single farm in Punjab, in Haryana, or in Delhi also, and in UP, because there also there is stubble burning, if not of rice, of other vegetables, there's stubble burning. Every time a farm burns in any of these states, the chief minister should be behind bars. Does she agree to this? Every time a farm burns in Delhi, Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal should be imprisoned. If she does, I am with her. But otherwise, for heaven's sake, let us solve the problem, because we are in direct violations of the Supreme Court orders of last year. I don't know what to say. I mean, are we a banana republic? Is there such a thing as a rule of law in this country? And very briefly, Navika, on the second issue, pinds of anarchy. That is what Punjab is turning into, pinds of anarchy. The land that gave us the Green Revolution is now hell-bent on giving us the red version. Except that while the Green Revolution saved us, the Red Revolution is going to destroy us, as it has every single pocket or nation it ever touched, from Soviet Union down to Venezuela. And the genuine farmer who wants to sell his produce in a free market, free of middlemen, free of commission agents, who wants to make avail of contract farming, who wants to save himself from the clutches of the vicious MSP dictated crop cycle that has led him to losing 45 lakh crores in the last 15 years because of faulty MSP government evaluation. That genuine farmer has been hoodwinked. What is happening in this country? Why are people destroying public property? Aren't those networks supposed to help the Punjab people and Punjab farmers? Who is responsible for that? What is the fault of thousands of factory workers and owners whose goods are not being allowed to pass through for a month now? Do they not have families to feed? I just don't believe, this is too surreal, Navika. You know, and I have to blame the BJP government as well, extract answers out of Mr. Dr. Sudhanshu Trivedi. Why is the government reacting out of fear and not fearlessness? Hear this. Today there are pinds of anarchy, but if left unchecked, tomorrow they will turn into whole districts, then states, and then the country itself. Do you want that?
That's the question. And Shantanu Sen, Dr. Nathan, because you have very strong views on the government's position as well as the farmers' position. Now that this protest by the farmers has entered into its 55th day, they've still rejected the government's offer. They've rejected the Supreme Court, they've rejected the government's offer, and the government has gone virtually on its knees and said, we will keep in abeyance these 3 farm laws for 18 months, which is till the middle of 2022. Even then, the Farmers Union have rejected this offer by the government, and they will continue with their tractor rally on the 72nd Republic Day of India on the 26th of January. What do you think about their approach?
Navika, it's very simple. India has lost, anarchism has won. That's it. You asked for 30 seconds, but tonight just a minute for observing silence in the memory of departed democracy and the rule of law.
Dr. Anand Ranganathan, you've never left a blank 30 seconds meant for your answer, and I was tempted to give it to you, but it is sad. And
Anand Ranganathan, who's been observing this story and commenting upon it all day. I'm not going to make it political immediately, but I want to ask you, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, what do you make of this? Are we being too sensitive, too insecure, too touchy?
Good evening, Rahul. By the way, that was a brilliant monologue. I think you summarized the whole events that are happening around us absolutely perfectly.
Thank you.
The fact of the matter is that this is the theater of the absurd. Welcome to the theater of the absurd. This is how such revolutions end, in a farce, where foreign politicians, pop stars and porn stars all jump in, hoping to extract their pound of flesh in cash or kind. In hailing these ignorant voices, do these dynasty slaves and chauthi-faced leftists even realize the joke they have become? One wonders if India at all has a school or a college system. Kaun hai ye log? Kahan se aate hain? A child activist is standing with those who are mindlessly pumping pesticides into our crop, emptying out our land of all water, turning our atmosphere into a gas chamber by burning stubble, and these guys are hailing her. A multi-billionaire capitalist singer is fighting to deny the fruits of capitalism to 200 million farmers, and these Indians are hailing her. This is not a crisis. This is a circus. These anarchists know that while they can get the press and the porn stars or both to amplify their cause, what they can never get is the vote. That's the real show of strength. But because it happens every 5 years, these Muppets, they get 4 years to create mayhem. The flanking 6 months, of course, are spent by them to recover from their defeat and lost deposits. I think Japan's Shinzo Abe had really cracked it. Any big reform that he put on the table, he called for a general election. And after he won it, he brought in the reform. Don't think it can happen in India, of course, but you get the drift. The essence of anarchism, Rahul, is to amplify the tiny minority and make it appear as a huge majority. And the only reply to that is that the vote of the huge majority happens. Perhaps the time has come for the silent majority of farmers, 90% of them, to come out and say they support these reforms through petitions or peaceful and legal marches. Because right now, the world is being hoodwinked by these idiots into believing that all 200 million farmers are opposed to these reforms. The reality is totally different. Rahul, please give me 30 seconds. I repeat, which farmer in his right mind would object to deciding the price of his own produce, given that faulty MSP evaluation has cost him a loss of 45 lakh crores in the last 15 years?
True.
Which farmer would object to sustained production and top quality godowns set up to store his produce, as the government can no longer jail the godown owners on account of whimsical ECA declarations or hoarding? Which farmer would object to private companies rushing in to sign a contract with him, no small print? In wanting to halt Modi, these deranged Muppets are halting India. And right now, believe it or not, they can make any sane Indian believe there is a ring to truth in that half funny, half bombastic Modi meme, where he's looking straight into you and saying, in reality, they are not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way.
Well, let me open this up. Ashutosh, a huge amount of insight. But please, now give us 30 seconds, please. Yes. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, I want to bring in right after that Ashok Pandit and Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari. Yes. Go ahead.
Yes, Ashutosh, please don't interrupt. Use that time to think of the second article you're going to write on Mia Khalifa, this time hopefully with some pictures. No, Tehseen, I have two questions for you. Let's leave aside MSP because there you're right. But there are 3 points, essentially 3 points about these farm laws. Number one is the abrogation of the Essential Commodities Act, which the Congress wanted. Number two was private contract farming, which the Congress wanted. Number three was the APMC, and here we are not removing APMC. The farmers are being given a choice. The Congress wanted to do away with APMC, including Sharad Pawar, including Captain Amrinder Singh, who was in the committee. Swaminathan committee report is 15 years old. Let's not revisit all that hypocrisy. No. I have one question for you, Tehseen, and my good friend, I'm sure you have the guts, you'll answer it. Let's go back to 2009 when you were, creating this doomsday scenario right now. In 2009, our economy was completely down in the dumps. You remember that. Number two, the whole country was wrecked by all these gigantic scams, 1.76 lakh crores, 2 crore lakh scams, okay? Number three, according to Shyam Saran, who is the UPA foreign secretary, China had encroached 600 square kilometers of Indian land. All the 3 things that you quote right now as having ripe for all these dancers and porn stars to come and comment on us, they could have done it then. Did BJP institute a coup? No, they waited for 4 more years. They waited for 2014 general elections. So my good friend, you are a good counsel of Robert Vadra and Rahul Gandhi. Please don't rock that cradle with your hand. Tell them, wait till 2024 and then wait for an acceptance speech of Amit Shah.